Okay, and I'm going to be recording as well, just so you're aware. Feel free to keep your cameras on or off as you see fit, but be aware that I am recording. No problem.
So I'll watch the
Could you moderate the Zoom room? Are you in the Zoom yourself? Okay, perfect. Excellent. Yeah. Because if there's any questions or anything like that, I might not be able to catch it. We'll see. I'll try my best. I will try my best. Welcome those of you who are from Dr. Carter's class. I found out from her that you guys would be here. Okay. And if any of you came from my classes, thank you very much as well. All right. If you have any questions, please feel free to post them in the chat. And those of you who are here, feel free to ask them. I'm talking to people online, as you can see. It's going to be a hybrid event. Let's try to juggle all these balls at once. Because, we never do things simply here. For those of you who are online, you may want to scan that QR code that you see over in the top right-hand corner, because that will take you to a handout that I have prepared with resources, both AI tools and Chat GPT prompts, okay? I'm going to hand this out to a couple students in here who haven't gotten it yet. Okay. Most of them have it, but I don't think you got one of these, did you? Okay, he needs one over here, and Carlos over here needs one. And the rest of you back here. Yeah. All right, so you can follow along with this handout. I guess it's just about time. I'll give it maybe another minute or two. But on this handout, what you have is on the first page, a set of tools, okay, for everybody to use. You have an AI toolbox, as I call it. Chat GPT is the first one that I want you to make sure you have an account for. It's the big player on the scene, the major disruptor since late 2022. If you do not have an account, please sign up for Chat GPT. It's free. Okay, OpenAI, so chat.openai.com. You could log in with your Google account if you have like a Gmail account or something like that. I find that easier myself. I got a couple different Google accounts. Sometimes they work well for logging in, but I have login issues here at school, but usually they work well. Okay, for Chat GPT, you definitely want to do something like that. You log in using your Google account. Use the free version. You don't have to use the paid version. I will tell you the paid version, GPT-4 and now 4.5 are extremely good, even better than what you're going to get from 3.5. This technology is at like the lowest level that it's going to be. If I could relate, most of you are too young to remember this, but I've been around since the dawn of bringing computers into the classroom at school in the 80s, and then bringing the internet into school when I was in college in the 90s. And if you can think back to the old 56K dial-up modems from the 90s, taking a really long time to log in, and then using the phone line and only one person at a time, and how long it would take for pages to load. If you have any conception of what that was like and where we are now, you can imagine with AI, we're at the beginning. We're at the 56K modem stage. We just got into using generative AI. This is like Windows 95 just got most people onto like the internet and chat rooms. And you see where that's gone now with social media and Web 2.0 and hyperlinks. And, once upon a time, it was incredible to think of images and text being on the same page. That's nothing for you guys. You know what I mean? That's normal internet for you guys. But when I was in high school, you either got text by looking it up on a directory and asking for a certain file to come out, and it was either text or an image, and it wasn't both things at once. HTML brought all that to us. Well, we're on the dawn of a new age with AI as well. Okay, thanks for coming. More bonus points for another Metallica shirt. We're at a similar turning point, if you will, inflection point in our society, where this new technology has been introduced, and it's only getting better and better and better and better, okay? So my mission to you as a writing instructor is to help you use these tools, all right, and use them productively and use them responsibly. for your research as well as your writing. So let's explore some of these. I know most of you were in my class when I talked about this a couple weeks ago. Those of you who are online are mostly new to this, okay? And I appreciate you guys coming along. All right, so let's talk about the writing process first. Oops, sorry. Let me actually go to the first step, the writing process, okay? And here you have that link again, with a little animation here. I'm going to frame this discussion in terms of the writing process, right? Pre-writing, drafting, revising, editing, and submitting. Not necessarily in those 5 stages, but you know, this graphic represents that these stages don't always go in a straight line. You might start writing and then come back and edit and then, you know, decide you have to plan out a better part or fix it or get rid of it completely. You know, I spent the weekend getting rid of chunks of my dissertation and writing new chunks to my dissertation, and it's crazy. You know, I thought I was done with the drafting and the revision, but I sent it to my dissertation chair. It comes back with suggestions for edits, and I had to go back to the drawing board and even draft new sections. Matter of fact, I'm going to try to do some of that research that I got to do here with you guys today. All right. Now you can scan this QR code if you're at home and you just came in. You can scan this QR code to get access to this handout. It has a series of AI tools on the front page, and then recommendations for how to use these tools, as well as GPT prompts, Chat GPT prompts for different stages of the writing process, which are up here. So let's talk about the first basic stage, right? Brainstorming, research. Let me get this out of my way here. In the pre-writing stage, right? For brainstorming and research. One of the basic ways we could use Chat GPT, and we'll talk about some of the prompts for Chat GPT. But you can have a conversation with Chat GPT if you're stuck for ideas, right? Because sometimes the hardest part about writing any assignment is just getting started. So you can literally go to Chat GPT and tell it, help me get started writing an essay about this topic. Okay, and it will begin asking you what are the guidelines, what are the specifications. It's a conversational AI. So the power of ChatGPT is in having a conversation with it. Consider it like, you know, your really smart friend that sometimes makes mistakes, but is generally pretty solid with the answers that they give you, right? So consider it that, all right? There are, however, some tools I want to talk about. And in our class, I didn't get to explore these too much with you guys. I'm going to spend a little bit more time exploring them today because I got the luxury of time. Now, I know if you have a class after this, you need to leave. Feel free to leave whenever you want to, okay? We'll be done probably about 11:15 or so with everything I want to talk about. But feel free to leave if you have another class. I understand, all right? So the first tool I want to talk about is SciSpace. This is personally one of my favorites, and I know I showed this in class. Elicit.ai is very similar. These are research assistance tools, okay? So can everybody at home see that screen right now? It says SciSpace. And I encourage you to open a window on the side and use your Google account to get into SciSpace yourself as well. I'm going to continue myself here. Sorry if I trip over my words a little bit. Okay. Now, this tool is extremely interesting. It's got a couple different features, all right? One interesting feature is ask questions on PDF. So if you've already found articles for research on your research papers or whatever, you can load it into this, click and drag it into this window and ask it questions, okay? And you can also extract data from your charts, okay, from your tables and such. And you can even paraphrase sections of your article for you, okay? But I'm going to start with the literature review, right? And let's say I want to ask questions. You know, one of the things that, for example, my dissertation chair recommended to me is to like bring in some articles that cite how my theoretical framework has been used in other studies. So the theoretical framework I'm using is called Utah. And I'm just going to put that topic up there because I'm going to look for what studies have used Utah. All right. Now, what it's going to do is it's going to explain what Utah is. Hopefully, it'll get it right. We'll see. Oh, not necessarily. Let's see. Has nothing to do with picture books. I don't know where it got that. Okay, so it definitely got that one wrong. Let me put the full name. It might not understand what it is. And let me fix this too. Unified Theory of Adoption and Usage of Technology. See what it comes up with. You know, I'll tell you what. Better yet, just technology adoption. Okay, put up my topic, technology adoption. And what it'll do is it'll give you the top 10 articles it finds on this, okay, on this subject. And it gives you a little summary from those 10 articles at the top, okay? Well, you'll see at the bottom, though, let me just point this out, right? So papers, got 10 papers. Some of these are open access, some of them are not. If they're not open access, I recommend that you log into the library tool, over here actually, so people on the computer can see me. If they're not open access, I recommend that you look for them in the databases through the MDC library, okay? You should be getting your research articles from the databases. That way you don't have to worry about the quality of these articles. But you'll notice that it finds 10 different articles. Most of them have a PDF with it. You can open up that PDF and read that peer-reviewed article yourself. And that topic is explained up here. For example, I typed in technology adoption. I mentioned technology adoption is a crucial aspect that determines the success of new technologies. And that came from this citation, number 1, right? If I hover over that little footnote, that little endnote there, it tells you it came from technology adoption and interaction perspective. You'll notice that that's the paper over here, technology adoption and interaction perspective. Let me just click on that one just to show you what we could do with this tool. Whatever, whatever paper you want to, whatever topic you're working on, feel free to look at one of those papers and do the same thing. Now, here I got the article itself. It's got the abstract, and I could, read through that information as I see fit. But what I could do is ask the Copilot here, hopefully that's the whole article. I could ask, for example, what are the results of that study, for example? Cut right to the chase, right? What did they conclude in the study? And by the way, when you're reading research articles, here's a little pro tip. Don't read them like a book. Don't read them like a novel. From page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's usually a good idea. Read the abstract, get an idea what it's about, see if you're going to use it or not, okay? And you may even want to read into the introduction, but then jump into the conclusion, right? The conclusion and the results. See what they found. And if you need to discuss the methods and all that kind of stuff, depending on what you're doing with the paper, then you could go later on and read the methodology and the data collection and the whole procedure. You don't necessarily have to read all the procedural stuff, right? As a researcher, as a student researcher, look at what they're saying in the abstract, look what they're saying in the literature review, and look at what they're saying in the conclusions and their summary. That's where you're going to get the most information. Look at the research questions they're asking and see how they answered those research questions in the conclusion. That's what you're really looking for, right? So I asked it, what are the results? And it said the paper presents a framework for technology adoption based on an interactive perspective, considering interactions among the individuals, technology, task, and the environment. That's a little summary of what the paper is about, right? So if you were to integrate this paper into your writing, you would say, something like a study by, who are the authors? Satoris et al. I have more than these two. So Satoris et al. Shouldn't touch the screen, but be careful with that. A study by Satoris et al. Present a framework for technology adoption based on an interactive perspective, right? It considers interactions among the individuals, technology, and task in the environment. And then you can quote the paper if you need to, right? As noted by Satoris et al., and I'm just grabbing the abstract here, not the best practice here. The success of new technology, quote, the success of new technology depends on how well it is accepted by its intended users. All right, that's actually a line I could probably use in my own research, to be honest. So yeah, that's, this has to do with the topic I'm doing for my dissertation, right? Technology adoption. Now, many of you have different topics. Some students have environmental topics. I know I gave you guys a variety of different tech-related topics, mostly AI and machine learning related. But for example, I'm going to challenge myself a little bit and look at something different, something I've been thinking about a lot as I've looked at documentaries about the Everglades restoration project and stuff. So I'm going to look, I know some students have problem solution essays. So let's look at it from a problem solution aspect, okay? So how about flooding in South Florida? I'm testing the system. I haven't done this before, just want to see what happens. Actually, floodwater management, rainwater management, water management, even better. Water management in South Florida. Important issue for us here because, we're on the edge between an ocean and a swamp. How do humans live here, right? And it's because of the way we manage the water. Most of our communities used to be swamps. They've been drained, they've been filled, and we're living on top of swamp, but we cut out the water supply that flows naturally to the Everglades. So if I'm writing a paper about some of the water management issues in South Florida, right? And if you're thinking about problem solution, maybe you have this kind of topic for your speech class or something like that. This is a very good one that affects all of us, right? Especially if you got flooding in your neighborhood. I'm talking to you, all my peeps from Hialeah. I know my old neighborhood in Hialeah, we had a lot of flooding. My neighborhood in Pembroke Pines, currently, we had an issue with flooding 3 years ago. You know, my neighborhood was flooded in, sewers backed up, you know. Let's say the streets smelled for a while, but our lawns looked really nice for several months. They got extra fertilizer, if you know what I mean. Anyway, so with this tool here, SciSpace, it's also called typeset.io. SciSpace, it told me about water management. It gave me the top issues here. Water management in South Florida is a complex system that involves balancing freshwater inputs to estuaries while meeting various demands. That's a nice little summary of what the issue is. The region utilizes strategies like dispersed water management and water farms to store water. Now, this is good. This is good because I don't know what dispersed water management is or water farms are. So if I wanted to dig in deeper into this, I could dig into those topics myself, okay? For example, I'm talking about problem solution. I could introduce the problem of water management. Then I could talk about one solution, dispersed water management, and another solution, water farms, right? How do they use that? 2 paragraphs, right? Then maybe the challenges of these things. They also mentioned South Florida Water Management District and all these things. And notice that each of these lines, each of these sentences has a little number afterwards. That number corresponds to that source down here. I'm loading it up right there on the screen. Oh, saved it to my notebook. But that, for example, number 2 here, this one here, where it talks about the South Florida Water Management District and how it plays a crucial role in managing water. That comes from source number 2. Source number 2 is over here. Your farm has a water storage system, steps to establish an agreement with the water management districts. I didn't know that. I didn't know farmers could set up something on their farms to like maybe store water and help the water management district. That would explain why so many cattle ranches have lakes around in them. But anyway, you have here, again, several papers. There should be about 10 of them. Yeah, 10 papers. It usually gives you 10 papers. Peer-reviewed papers, right? All about water management in South Florida. So, you know, throw a problem at it, see what it comes up with. Here's a 2012 article, River of Interest, Water Management in South Florida and the Everglades, 1948 to 2010. This is nice because it gives a broad overview, historical overview, and it's relatively recent paper. Now, over here, let's, you know, on that chart, right, what do you see? It gives you the title. It gives you the number of citations. This is very important as well if you're looking to see if it's a quality paper. It's not a hard, fast, I mean, I'm sure Adrian here from Learning Resources can talk more about this. Paper counts are not necessarily the best indicator of the quality of a paper, but they are one indicator because better papers tend to be more highly cited in the literature. So for example, those other ones, you didn't see any citations, you don't have 23 citations, you have 27 citations. These might be sources you want to use because they have higher citation counts, okay? I do got to mention that kind of system has been criticized, you know, 30 citations might be really good, although it's from 2011, so that might explain it, right? The older papers will have more citations than the newer papers. 86 citations, that one's looking pretty good to me, all right? Just by the number of citations, okay? And I can ask Copilot questions on this paper if I want to. If I want to look at the paper, why not? I just click on it. And it opens it up. I don't know if you noticed, but on the side, it had like a little summary of what the paper was about. So you could kind of quickly tell what the essay is about. But I open it here, and it also tells me there's 20 related papers, 20 papers related to this. So if this is a good topic that you want to write about, you can click on those 20 related papers. It's already done your research for you, right? It's using AI to find these articles quickly. Again, you know, these are peer-reviewed articles, right? This is made for researchers at the college level, all right? This is not made for people who are just trying to win an argument over a game of beer pong or something like that, okay? So if you find, you know, that this paper is interesting to you, you can read it, right? You could explain the abstract, explain conclusions, results of the paper, methods used in the paper, right? What are the contributions of this paper? I find this to be an interesting question too. What are the contributions of this paper? And let's see, it's thinking, trying to figure out, I don't know what it really contributes. So what does this paper do? This paper analyzes historical data, to assess the potential impacts of climate change on water resource management. Okay, so if you're talking about climate change and its impact on water resource management, this is a good article you could use for either one of those. If you have a science topic, you're talking about climate change and the impact on humans' health, this could talk about it, right? Water management, flooding could cause issues for people. If you're writing about a problem in your community, a problem solution essay, you could talk about water management and the impact on people's health, right? I like to mention to people that the real world is not, we think about, in school, we think about science and math and English as if we're all like, I'm an English person, I'm a math person, I'm a science person. But as I've mentioned to you before in class, the real world topics overlap, right? Science and mathematics and writing and technology, they're all interrelated, okay? So, all right, so you can see what the contributions are of the paper, highlights the limitations of the GCMs in capturing statistical characteristics. This is a bit, high level reading here, all right? But you take the points that are relevant to what you're writing, okay? So that you can mention, this paper emphasizes the importance of investigating the potential impacts of climate change, in particular attention to the uncertainties and projections. So you can mention that even though some of the models have problems, right, it's important to investigate the impact of climate change on some of these systems. And then you can cite this paper, you can quote from this paper, you can paraphrase this paper after having introduced it, because this gave you an idea what the paper was about, right? Let me just click on the related papers real quick. That's an interesting little feature here, because now you have 20 papers that are related to this. So with this tool, with SciSpace, if you find one good source, you can find many good sources very quickly, all right? These are older, I imagine, as you can see, because they're related to this paper. They're probably citing this paper and such. So these are papers that it cites and papers that cite this one. So I see a lot of older research. I see something from 1970 in the Journal of Hydrology. Most of your teachers will tell you use articles that are within 3 to 5 years. Okay, want to use current research. But they do have some more current ones, right? 2011 is the most current one, but I believe that one, the other one was a 2011 paper anyway. So yeah, here's another paper here with 141 citations. So that's a pretty strong paper from 2011. If I click on that one, I just go down that rabbit hole, right? I can find 20 more papers related to this one. I can read this paper myself, right? So this SciSpace tool is extremely useful for finding articles on whatever you're writing about, okay? So now, if I go into, let me see if I can move this doc to the bottom. Thank you. All right, so now going back into my presentation, right? So that's one tool here, all right? I think everybody should be able to see this. Is everybody at home seeing me when I bounce from different tabs? Are they seeing this tab? And that, okay, good. All right, so that was the first tool, SciSpace. Elicit.com, Elicit AI is very similar. I have a little bit less experience with this one. All right, but it's a very similar tool, as you'll see in a moment. I'm going to continue with my Google. It's very handy to have a Google account these days, or a Microsoft account. Interesting, new interface. So I have not messed around with this interface, but you can ask a research question. You can extract data from PDFs. Again, if you have papers that you found for your research, you can extract that data, drag and drop them in here and ask it questions about your paper. Okay, so you can make sure you get, you're reading them quickly that way. All right, it's one way to save yourself a lot of time. Or you can find papers. Somebody give me a topic. Let's see, what kind of topics are you working on? Maybe, I see some stuff coming up in chat. Okay, people are saying okay.
I was someone was saying that thought that the workshop would start again because they just joined.
Oh, some people just joined.
We just looked at the first.
Yeah, I'm still on the first stage. Yeah. So if you just came in, I will bounce back and I will actually, let me go back to the beginning, kind of.
We also have it recorded as well.
Yeah, we do have it recorded. Oh, no, this is not what I'm looking for. Let me go back 1 second to give you the QR code link. Folks, if you are with me since the beginning, please bear with me. So yeah, we're still literally at the beginning. For those of you who just joined us online, I know some people came in at 9:40. I do apologize for those of you. So if you're online and you just came in, you can scan that QR code right in front of you on the screen, and you will be taken to this handout, which is breaking down the tools on the first page, listing all the tools on the first page. and breaking down how you could use these tools and at each step of the writing process, and Chat GPT prompts at each step of the writing process, okay? I'll show you a little bit more detail on that later. And the first tool we looked at was SciSpace. I just showed SciSpace. And right now I was opening up Elicit.ai, which is a similar tool, just a different interface. Again, so if I wanted to find papers with this one, again, let me get a topic. What are you guys writing? I know you guys have written about your topic, but does anybody want to throw their topic? Anybody had a challenging topic they want to explore? How's it going, Jake? Anything, any topic from you guys here? I see maybe somebody in the chat. Let me see.
Well, I would talk about that.
You got a topic, sure?
I think food history.
Food history?
Yes.
Interesting. Yes, okay. So let's find about the history of food. So I'm not gonna ask this question. What can you tell me about food?
Oh, actually, you have a student who responds, so maybe you can go with that one. Rent.
Okay, I'll draw rent. Okay. About a problem of rent. How about rent or rentals? Rent or rentals? Let's see. This is rent. Excuse me. I'm sure it looks great on camera. Let's see what it says about rent. I don't know. What is the problem with renting? There's advantages and disadvantages. I shouldn't have called it a problem of rent. The question determines the answer, So maybe I should have asked, what can you tell me about the issue of rent? Right? But I already said problem. So let's see. It's going to probably take a negative kind of take on it. So rent is a complex issue with various dimensions. Christopher's 2019. I love how it's already citing a source for you, right? What can you do with that citation? What anybody could do with your citation. This is why we have APA and MLA citations, which I'll talk about in a minute. You click on that and you can see the paper right there. Okay. With this tool, it creates it as a sort of notebook. So you might like Elicit.ai. It's a little bit more user-friendly, but I don't think it's going to let you do too much before it asks you to get a paid subscription or something like that. But here it gave you 4 papers tied into a nice little paragraph summarizing what the problem of rent is. All right. So the problem of rent lies in the monopoly power of the rentier, leading to low innovation and worker exploitation. Interesting. This view is expanded by Christopher, who sees rent as a reflection of societal organization under Western capitalism. Yeah, I can see that. All right. The idea that the nobles own the land that the peasants work on, and the peasants had to rent out that land to the noble and give some of their food to the noble, right? That hasn't changed since the Dark Ages. We're kind of in that situation too, right? The landowner owns the house, and then we work, we slave away to pay the rent, right? But I will say something about renting though, versus mortgages. I'm paying a mortgage right now. When you get a mortgage and you buy a house, you're kind of locked into that house. You're not going anywhere. You're going to be living somewhere near that house because you regularly need to maintain that house and things. If you rent it out to somebody else and you're living far away, it makes property management more difficult if you're thinking about that as an investment property. So there's pros and cons. When you're renting, you're free to travel. You're free to move around. When you're younger, it may be more beneficial to rent. When you're buying a house, you're strapped in. Okay, you're strapped in, you're locked in there unless you get rid of the house, right? So be careful with that. So yeah, here's the issue with rent. That was a very good suggestion, whoever had that. And I see another renting, my apologies. Yeah, well, renting is fine. I think we got information about renting here, and this is great for me because I get to see more about Elicit.ai myself. Now here it's showing you the major papers mentioned here. I think only those 5. Oh, it's got a lot of papers here, and it's even willing to load more papers for you. So it's got these papers here, and you can see a citation count. Look at this one from 2018 with 79 citations. That one's good. If it's a relatively recent paper, and it's got a lot of citations for being so recent. It might be a very well-respected author. I mean, compared to this 1983 paper with only 10 citations, right? So yeah, and over on the right-hand side in the middle, it gives you a summary of what that paper is about, an abstract summary. So summarize the abstract. And you can create a column here if you want to see like main findings. This is really interesting. I'm starting to like this one better than SciSpace because I could give my summary in one. right? Give me a summary in one column, and I could look at the main findings in another column. So with this tool, I could do a lot more than, sorry about that. I could do a lot more than SciSpace than I can with SciSpace. What I can't do is scroll left to right apparently on my screen. Can I scroll? No, I can't scroll. Maybe if I get to the bottom of this, I don't know. But yeah, you can add columns here. You could take away columns. You could probably scroll on your computer. I don't know if I need to make my screen a little bit smaller, maybe. I'll try making it smaller, see if this helps. Can I get a scroll bar? No, I don't get a scroll bar. But can I scroll this way? I can't scroll that way either. Okay, so I can't scroll left or right for some reason on this page, but you can add columns, and I guess you could take away columns as you see fit. All right. So that's another tool here. All right. Filter columns by keywords. Okay. Anyway, you got lots of different things you could do with Elicit AI. Again, watch how you answer how you ask a question. Let me try with just a single word. Let me try 2 words. Military drones, one of my favorite topics to read about lately. Got a lot of students writing about that and about vaping. Very interesting papers about vaping too. All right. It's getting a little old to read about vaping, but the military drones is definitely an interesting topic because, we'd like to think, it's a cleaner way of having war, but we've still got a lot of innocent people dying. So it's not necessarily a cleaner way of doing war. It just kind of takes our hands off. So in military drones, it gave me a summary here. The use of military drones are unmanned aerial vehicles, UAV. So now you got another term you could feed into the search engine. Has significantly expanded, and that's from Schneiderman 2012. Now these citations are all a little old, all right? But you can update this. If there's information about this from back then, you can find articles about this in the databases and by searching for them. That's just what they're citing here, okay? I could sort by maybe the most recent, right? I don't think it'll redo. So summary of the top, maybe, I could do 8 papers if I did the plus version. Very interesting. Here's the most recent papers. Okay, so to organize them for me here. And remember that in the columns, I told it give me an abstract summary, but I can add more columns. Let's say I told you the findings, right? The findings and the discussion. So if you add main findings here, you can see what the paper contributed to the field. All right. So the main findings of this first one is the use of network jammer in the military-grade FPV drone to disable networks in the area. Wow. And specific payload requirements for military drones. Yeah, that's freaky to think that this technology, drones that can fly over you, disable your networks, and then bomb you, So don't depend on those networks too much. Lesson to be learned here. All right. Watch the tech you depend on. So this is a great tool, Elicit.ai. I really strongly recommend you to work with this one, okay? This notebook feature threw me off because it's a new feature, all right? But I like it. It gives you a summary in a paragraph form with your citations already made for you. You can reword that yourself. We're going to talk about, appropriate use of AI in a couple of minutes as well, because you need to discuss this with your teachers. How much are they comfortable with? Are they comfortable with wholesale copying and pasting off of AI? I'm not comfortable with that. I'd rather see you modify the sentences and change things around a little bit to fit your voice, fit your style. See, the thing is, like I like to tell my students, and those who are online who are not my students, this is new for you. AI has taken care of the boring stuff for us, right? Because it's boring to spend hours and hours and hours looking for articles and not being sure if they're good or not. AI can find the articles for you in a few seconds, and you can determine if they're good or not just by looking at the findings, the summaries, citation counts, and different things like that. And how recent they are and what they're actually saying, right? And it can even write sections of your essay for you, which is what we hate to do at the end of the day, right? We're sitting down, staring at the screen, wishing the thing could write itself. Well, now it can write itself. You just got to tell it what you want it, where you want this to go. It gives you a chance to be the conductor, to really be behind the steering wheel and taking your research where you want it to go, okay? So that was illicit.ai. All right. Let me go back to my presentation. Hopefully everybody can see a screen that says pre-writing now. I showed you SciSpace earlier. I showed you illicit.ai. Those are two very good research assistants. I used to like SciSpace better. I think I'm leaning more towards illicit today after looking at that new notebook feature. I really like that notebook feature. You know, I like the fact that it gives you the citations style, which is very nice. But I did notice that SciSpace has more recent papers. Illicit AI has older papers. So you gotta kind of weigh the pros and cons. The next tool is an interesting one, lit maps. Okay, and I'm going through these because this was advertised on the calendar for the events. That one of the things we're going to look at was these tools, typeset and lit maps. Now, lit map, yes, I'm going to use lit map because this one I want to find out what papers have used the theoretical framework. Beautiful. I'm going to find papers that have used it. Here's a recent paper that used the theoretical framework I need to use. It's used in marketing here, but I'm using it for educational technology because I'm actually doing this in my research. I'm working on a dissertation right now. And one of the pieces of feedback that I got from my dissertation chair, my section was good there, but I need to finish explaining a couple points that I started explaining about the Utah framework. And she suggested that I mention a couple studies that have used it to kind of establish how it's a well-known theory. So, wow, these are all based on Venkatesh's 2012 paper, which is actually started in 2003. But I got all these other papers, Facebook and socioeconomic benefits in the developing world, technology acceptance assessment and ambient intelligence. I got all these different papers that have used that theoretical framework. So in a few minutes, I can address what my dissertation chair told me to address in my dissertation, okay? I can find articles, and this gives me, instead of having to dig in through them and read them one by one, I could kind of hover over them, see what they're about. I might find something that has to do with writing or writing instruction or something like that. If I do, I'm in the money. That'd be quick for me. If I find one in a different language, I'm out of gas. So yeah, buy now, pay later, e-commerce. I'd have to look at this myself, okay? But I could easily find papers that have dealt with this topic. Now, that was just one topic I'm looking at myself. Let me close out some of these windows here. And let me go back to where I was earlier. Now it says sign in, sign up, right? I guess I better sign in. Can I do it with Google? Yes, I can sign in with Google because otherwise it's going to limit how many things I could do with lit maps. Yeah, Jake.
Why are the circles different sizes?
Probably because the number of times they've been cited. That's a good question. That's a good question. Let's look at what he's referring to is this. Let me go back to that. The Utah, all right? And let me find that paper or you know, actually. Let's see if I can find the original study, Venkatesh 2003. And see what papers have linked from there. No, I don't see it, but these are papers that are linked to it. All right, and the question I just got asked, let me generate the lit map here. Where is that lit map? Where'd it go? Lit map now. That's weird, maybe because I just clicked on that paper. I don't know why it didn't want to give me the lit map this time. Okay, create lit map. So the question I got is why are some of these dots bigger than others? This is one huge dot. That's not helping. Oh, it's very recent. So I guess I probably shouldn't use that one. Let me go back. Let me do another lit map. Let me pick another one for that topic. Actually, you know what? We did water management earlier. That was pretty interesting. Water management in South Florida. Please excuse the fact that I should capitalize just to make sure it knows that it's a name. It's important. Let's see what it comes up with. So there's that article again, River of Interests. That was an interesting one. It was pretty highly cited in the literature. I created a lit map. It is not showing me the relations to other papers. I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened to my lit map here. That is showing just one dot instead of all the dots that it should show. Interesting. Explain. That's what I think. I do believe. Let me let this run a minute. There we go. Yeah, so what I assume is that the size of the dot might have to do with it's not showing the same here. Okay, yeah, reference count, citation count. So size and position has to do with the reference count. And citation count, yeah, so position. Position has to do with how recent it is, 2023. And, you know, the further down to the right it is, the more recent, the further up and to the left it is, the older it is. But these are all the papers that have cited that paper from 2012, okay? So you can find later research on what they've said about that research as well. This gives you material to work with as you write your essays, okay? So Lit Maps is a really interesting tool, okay? It's different than the other ones, okay? It's not like Elicit AI, and it is not like SciSpace, all right? But it's very, very useful for finding other articles that are related, okay? And that mention this article, okay? So if you find one good article and you need to find 4 or 5 for your assignment, you can click on that one good article, see what other articles have cited it or what articles it cites, and find other relevant research very quickly, all right? So those are the research assistants that you could use for the first stage, brainstorming and research. But you can also use Chat GPT for your brainstorming. And excuse the Prezi logo here, all right? Let me full screen this puppy here. So you can go on to Chat GPT if you have a Chat GPT account. Go into Chat GPT, have a conversation with it. Tell it, what can you tell me about this, right? Can you cite, what are the top 5 articles that have that cite this topic or that mention this topic, okay? What are the top 5 most cited articles about this topic, right? You can ask it questions such as, who are the major researchers in this area to find out. However, it will lie sometimes, okay? Yes, question?
You always have to use prompts for ChatGPT, or you just be like a statement?
It works better as a question. It does work better as a question. It's a conversational AI, okay? So yeah, I can't just go in and say, just type the topic like water management and say, it'll ask you, what do you want to know about water management? There are many things that can tell you, what do you want to know about water management? It tries to have a conversation with you. And it'll tell you what it can or cannot tell you. Like you could go into ChatGPT, give me plans for how to create a bomb. It'll say, sorry, I'm not going to help you with that. You know what I mean? It has people supervising. It's a supervised AI system that will have people checking and telling it what it can or cannot do. All right. But it is very good for this. It is actually designed for this to help people brainstorm and plan out these kind of things, right? You can have it write code for you. As a matter of fact, I'm working with my son, a little project I'm going to launch in my classes in the fall. But you know, I was having trouble finding, I wanted to do an assignment where I have students do a sentiment analysis. Like they'll take text from social media posts or their own writing, and they run it through, and it'll tell you it's positive, negative, neutral, and rank it on that, right? And also like, what are the most common topics? I could not find any good free tools to do that online. My son is a programming genius. My oldest son, he's about to graduate right now. He's here at North Campus, School for Advanced Studies, and he's a tutor in Access Services. And he's great at programming. He loves to write code. He's learning Python and all that stuff right now. I said, hey, could you ask ChatGPT to write some Python code, create a sentiment analysis? Within 10 minutes, my son had created a program to do exactly what I couldn't find a program to do online. He did that with ChatGPT, writing code for him, put it into code.org, ran it, it ran beautifully. We tweaked it, we modified it, made it even better, okay? And I'm thinking about developing a lesson for my students on that, you know, having writing students program computers. Because now you can have that conversation. This is getting back to, you know, what we mentioned earlier. You can have that conversation with ChatGPT, say, hey, how do I create a program that could do this? Where can I run this code? Where can I input that code? All right. So it could really help you do just about anything you're trying to do. All right. I want to paint my house. What should I take into consideration when I'm painting my house? It'll help you with all those things. Okay. But be careful because some of the information it gives you, it hallucinates. Okay. For example, one time I did ask it who are the major researchers in the field of plagiarism detection, which is what my dissertation is about. And it told me one of the major researchers was something like Donald Turnitin, totally fictitious person. I thought that was suspicious. I was like, Turnitin? No way. No way. Somebody who's doing plagiarism research is named Turnitin. And of course, it was a lie. It was not, so it makes up names. That was a very entertaining little rabbit hole I went down for 5 minutes that day. But anyway. So next step of the process, and I'm sorry for that Zoom screen, guys. I really hate that about Zoom, this little thing being in the middle of everything. But the next step, drafting, writing it, okay? The boring part, the part that we all hate, right? Some of us. I actually enjoy writing sometimes, except when my carpal tunnel syndrome acts up. All right. So sometimes getting started is the hardest thing. For that, you might find something like a thesis generator to be helpful. Okay, this might even be the first place you start when you're trying to do an essay or a research paper. Try to come up with a thesis statement. Now, I gotta give you a warning. StudyCrumb has a lot of other tools in it that I don't necessarily agree with. But I love the thesis generator. I've been seeing these thesis generator tools for many years now. And honestly, they have gotten so good over the past year or so. Before, 10 years ago, they weren't. 10 years ago, they were garbage, mildly helpful. The first time I saw one was in 2010. I was working for University of Phoenix, and one of their lessons had like a thesis statement generator for the students to use to create their thesis statements. I borrowed that for some of my classes at Miami-Dade College. I said, well, this is the University of Phoenix, but it's a pretty interesting tool. But it would give you some very weird thesis statements that weren't exactly well phrased in English. It was jumbled up sometimes. Nowadays, I guess with the AI technology behind it, it can write some very clear, very powerful, coherent thesis statements. And I know I showed you this in my class, so bear with me if you saw this in class, but I have people online who are not students in my class. So for example, let's say, what is your paper about? Again, taking, problem solution essays or maybe a problem in your community, water management in South Florida. Paper type. This is definitely an essay, not a scholarship essay. Let me scroll down a little bit. Why isn't it letting me go deeper than this? It should give me, oh, there it goes, okay. Essay, any type. Let's see the arrow. Purpose, I'm gonna, what purpose is that? I guess I'll make it persuasive or analytical essay. No, persuasive, what should we do? No, I'll make it analytical. I'll make it analytical, depending on what paper you want. If you're writing a research paper, it's usually an argument paper. So yeah, I'm making persuasive, argument. And then argument, it is important to people living in South Florida, or it is critical. How about this? It is critical for everyday life. Yes, it helps that we don't have to take a canoe out to our jobs every day. I think about that because I live near the Everglades, and I think, wow, once upon a time, people got around in canoes here. You know what I mean? Supporting points. Well, I might need to get some supporting points from the tools that I saw earlier. But flood management, right? Flood management. We got saltwater intrusion issues, and Everglades. Sorry. Internet connection is unstable. Okay. Say pollution in the bay. Is it called Everglades Bay? I forget what it's called. Pollution in the Gulf. All right. And counter argument, wow, there's another point of view. What contradicts my statement? People don't think about it much. Unless it's broken, right? We don't notice where our water goes, where our water comes from until there's a problem with it, right? I was thinking about that the other day because there's some construction in my neighborhood, and it's amazing how they've torn apart a gigantic forest that used to be right across the street from my house is now leveled out, ready to build townhouses on. And I said, wow, and then I'm looking at all the water work, the pipes and all stuff. Like, it's amazing to think about. We never think about that. We just flush our toilets, turn on our sinks, water our lawns, whatever. We never think about where that water came from, what it took to get there. All right. So I'm not going to add any more details. Let's see what the thesis statement, what the generator comes up with here. So, and I mentioned this earlier for some of you who are in my 825 group, mentioning a counter argument and, positioning that against your main argument. So here it gives me the counter argument right off the bat. Despite common beliefs that water management in South Florida is of little concern unless there's a crisis, my point, right? Its importance extends far beyond everyday life with significant implications for flood management, saltwater intrusion prevention, and maintaining the health of the Gulf. So those ideas came from me, but it put it together for me into a succinct, very well-written sentence, okay? So this can help you. Now, let's say you have problem, like you don't like the way that that's written. You can take AI to fix AI too. So I'm going to open up Chat GPT. Hopefully I don't have any embarrassing conversations saved in there. And I'm going to ask it to rewrite the following thesis statement. I know you guys can't see it at the bottom because my bar here. Rewrite the following thesis statement, and I'll give it a colon, and I'll give it the thesis statement. And it's just citing study crump. Gotta love how when you copy and paste AI stuff, it knows. So there it goes, rewriting it for me, contrary to prevailing assumptions. There's a different way of looking, Okay, rewrite it to simplify the language, making it more at high school level, for example. And now I brought the language a little bit down to earth. Okay, so instead of having those $10 words, we're using those $5 words. Although many people think water management in South Florida is only important during emergencies, it actually has a big impact beyond daily life. Help control floods, prevent saltwater from getting to freshwater sources, and keep the Gulf healthy. That's the kind of level of writing I would expect to see more from my students than necessarily the stuff above. All right, but your AI tools can help you with that. They can help you with just about anything you need to write. We just got to kind of stop being afraid of it, embrace it. It's, like when my mother when she was stuck with her flip phone, didn't want to move to a smartphone for many, many years. You got to be careful with that tendency. Embrace technology, accept technology, but be careful because there's always challenges. There's always limitations with it. You know what I mean? But they're tools. Tools can help us do a lot of things in our environment. So as I was mentioning in the presentation, you can use a thesis generator to generate your thesis, okay? And I'm going to show you an AI prompt you could use as well. But I do want to call your attention to this tool here, the Packback Writing Lab. I wish I could zoom in a little bit more effective here. The Packback Writing Lab. Now, I'm only going to link to a demo page of it, but every student at Miami-Dade College has access to Packback if the teacher activates it in their Canvas course, okay? And in Packback, you have a tool that will help you brainstorm and come up with ideas and coach you through writing your essay, okay? Very similar, those of you who are in my class, you've used the tool, the Packback tool. You see that stuff on the right-hand side here, that overview area. This is very similar to the Packback tool that we use, Packback conversation questions. So it'll evaluate your writing quality, your grammar, your flow, and your research quality, and it'll help you integrate articles. If you need articles, you got SciSpace, you got Illicit AI, you have the databases, okay? All those ways to draw in articles to enhance what you're writing, okay? It also has a feature where you can tell it the citation for your articles, and it builds your reference page for you as well, Okay, I mentioned it before the reference page assignment in this class, but not too far before it because I didn't want you to use that tool to create your reference page for you. But yeah, if you're in a hurry, you're in a pinch, it could do it for you. All right. Although I find that really easy to do nowadays, on the databases, or anywhere you go, Elicit AI, SciSpace, you see a little citation tool, a little quotation mark, click on it, choose APA or whatever style your teacher is telling you to use, and copy and paste it. Just remember to put it alphabetical order, double space, and hanging indentation, way easier than the 90s when we had to type everything out. You had to get the cover page, make a photocopy of the title page of whatever book you were using, because they were all books. And then you'd list the author and the date and type these things onto your little word processor, or if you're lucky, one of the fortunate ones, you had a computer. Or if you were quirky like me, I had a typewriter. I was trying to do it the old-fashioned way. Go figure. I still have my typewriter. Love the little typewriter. Anyway, so this is a really interesting tool. If you have Packback in your classes, if you're using Packback, look for the little link in your Packback tool. It says Writing Lab. Okay, it's a free tool you can use. Your teacher doesn't need to assign you anything for it. It is a conversation you click on it and start typing, and it starts asking you questions about what you're typing, and you can have a conversation with that AI to help you write your essays better. Okay, if you don't want to depend too much on Chat GPT, because Chat GPT could do a lot of the writing for you, if you would rather just be coached with it, the Writing Lab tool is a very, very good tool. All right, so I highly recommend this. You'll be seeing more and more of it, I'm sure. We have a free site license for it, all Miami-Dade students. And teachers are catching on to Packback thing, jumping on the Packback bandwagon. Say that 5 times fast. Yeah, so now let's talk about prompts. Whoa. Let me go back. So those are 2 tools there for idea generation. Let me just go back 1 second. Thesis generator and the Packback writing tool. These are all linked on this handout, by the way. Those of you who came in, I don't know if you grabbed the handout, but I have a handout handy for you. And those of you who might have dropped into the presentation halfway through, I will go back to the link where you can download this document as well. All right. So now, what kind of prompts can you use with Chat GPT, right? Because Chat GPT itself can help you develop ideas, right? Well, I'll give you some sample prompts here. They're in the handout as well. You could tell it, for example, help me create an outline. Now, when you're going to tell it to create an outline, you got to specify what kind of outline, how many parts, right? What are the directions for that essay, right? You can tell it, I have this topic, okay, and copy and paste the topic. And here are the requirements for the paper. Copy the requirements. Can you help me create an outline for this paper? And it will give you a suggested outline. Now, you've got to be careful and be selective about what it's giving you, but it can help you organize your ideas very quickly, give you some ideas. What kind of ideas can I talk about on this paper? Can you organize this into an effective outline for a 5-paragraph essay, right? So make sure you tell ChatGPT to add any parts you might need, or to take out any parts or limit them or not. In my class, we saw, like, when I asked it to give it an outline, it would give me one section of the outline really well filled out, but then section 2 and section 3 were not very full. So I'd have to prompt it, please give me more details for section 2. Please give me more details for section 3. All right. So you could ask it, as I say here at the bottom, expand whatever section of the outline that you're looking for to include more details about whatever topic you're using. And yes, I know there's a typo on this paper on that part. I noticed it later on after I had sent it to print. Oh, well. All right. So now moving beyond the drafting stage. You've gotten it to write, you've written your essay, you got a basic essay written, okay? Even if you've generated many parts through AI, you want to make sure that the parts flow well with each other. If you generated most of the content yourself, you will probably want to use a grammar checker, spelling checker. Now, everybody's familiar with the spelling and grammar checker of Microsoft Word, that old-fashioned thing, right? Which is not always very good, okay? Microsoft Word has a much better checker now. It's called the editor tool. All right, so make sure you look for that in the upper right hand corner. Click on the editor. It'll check for spelling, punctuation, usage, wordiness. I've talked about this in several papers. Cut down on unnecessary wordiness. The Microsoft Word editor is really good with that. If you want some very powerful grammar checkers here, free ones, StudyCrumb again has its own grammar checker. All right. this one's better than your basic Microsoft Word spelling and grammar checker. Okay, so you can copy and paste whatever you have, put it into the box, and it'll fix it for you, right? So spelling this word is wrong. All right, say I put that in here, check the text. It's already telling me some errors there. All right, hover over it. Oh, I'm signed out. Oh, that's Grammarly kicking in, by the way. You'll notice this that's being underlined is because I'm logged into Grammarly. I'll talk about Grammarly next. I have this Grammarly plugin tool here, right? I strongly recommend that you use Grammarly. I love the little plugin tool. It really helps me prevent mistakes when I'm typing very quickly. I still make mistakes when I'm typing quickly, but it helps me catch them a lot more easily, right? So over here, for me to check this text, I would need to log in. Let's see. Yeah, it doesn't want to give me the corrections yet. Not that easily, huh? Not that fast, is it? Yeah, for some reason, it doesn't want to tell me what's wrong with it. Insert the text, press the button, get the results. Oh, check on the highlighted spelling errors or grammar improvements for more options. So yeah, it's not letting me read this because my Grammarly message keeps popping on. If I disable my Grammarly, I might be able to. Can I disable Grammarly for a moment? Let me see. Give me a second to disable Grammarly, if I can. I don't necessarily want to. Okay, I can't really disable Grammarly right now. But if you don't have Grammarly, you can click on it and you can see behind it. You can kind of, oh, there it goes. Behind it, it gave me the possible suggestions. Okay, this is a useful tool. I personally find Microsoft Word Editor much better. Okay, and I like the fact that it gives you a little numerical score at the top that judges the correctness of your sentences. You can try to get that as close to 100%. And yes, you can get 100% correct sentences with that Microsoft Word Editor. All right. Another tool I've mentioned already, Grammarly. If you're not already using it, what are you waiting for? Okay. I've been using this myself for several years. I started really getting into it, exploring it back in 2018. I was always aware of it. I knew about it, didn't really worry about it. I like grammar checker, spelling checker. I'm all for it. Use it. I'd rather see less mistakes in your writing than more mistakes, because mistakes in the real world could cause real problems, you know? But I was on vacation, actually, and there was a family of 4, and 2 of the kids were in college-age kids. This was back in 2018. My kids were younger. We were in France. We were in Paris, actually. We were about to get into a cathedral, and one student, I guess he had just graduated with his bachelor's degree, and he was telling his parents that, like, he wouldn't have survived if it weren't for Grammarly. And I'm like, wow, that's a, you know, this kid's going to an Ivy League school, at least I think so. He had an Ivy League sweater, so I guess he was an Ivy League student. And the fact that he was giving so much high praise to Grammarly, you know, he's like, yeah, no, I don't make spelling and grammar mistakes usually, but I like to just double check anyone. I'm like, okay, then, you know, if he's pretty comfortable with his writing and he finds it to be useful and it's out there being advertised, let me see it. And guys, I find it incredibly useful myself, you know. It's not that I don't know how to write correctly, is that it'll catch the mistakes as I go, and I could just click, fix, click, fix, click, fix, and move on. However, if you're doing this on your essays, you need to be careful, because AI detection tools will pick up on those replacements. If you just click and automatically replace, it comes up as AI generated text. So you might want to retype it, right? Fix the spelling yourself manually to avoid it coming up as AI detected text. All right, just a little tip here. But I use it through Google. I use the free version. I don't pay anything. I have kids. I don't want to pay for extra stuff. I got to pay for all their stuff. You know what I mean? I got to pay for my son's dates with his girlfriend sometimes. That's pretty painful. You know what I mean? You get to have the fun and I got to pay for it, right? But anyway, yeah. Sign up for Grammarly. I strongly recommend it myself. I think it's very, very useful. And I believe it's got plagiarism detection and all that kind of stuff now too, the advanced features. All right. Again, I strongly recommend Grammarly. I'm not going to dwell too much on that. Many of you already use it, as I know. A tool that you may, I know my students have seen it, but those of you who are online may not have seen it, is paperator.com. This is associated with Grammarly. Matter of fact, this is where I began seeing stuff about Grammarly, because Paperweight has been around for a long time, but if you click over here, it'll send you to a link for Grammarly. But this website's really interesting, and it's getting better and better as it goes on. It will check your grammar, your spelling, and proofread your writing. I love that it checks for the quality of your language. You know, are you using more advanced words or more basic words? Are you repeating words too much? It's completely free, but you gotta access it correctly. You gotta click that button that says use now free. I know it doesn't say click here, it should say click here. But web designers have something against saying click here. It's considered bad design. You know, to me, it's like, I would say it's an obvious choice, tell people to click here, but web designers want it to look sexy, and click here doesn't look sexy. Anyway, you can take your essay, copy and paste it into here, or you can click upload the file and upload your essay. All right, I should have had an essay ready to show you. You choose your level. As a matter of fact, let me find an essay. Let me find an essay. Matter of fact, yeah, I'm not gonna ask it right. Let me just do a quick little search, an illegal search for a sample essay on water management in South Florida. You'll find everything online. Let's see. Well, that was an official, not a student essay. So maybe a student essay. Well, I don't know. It's a publication by.
Excuse me, Professor, you're muted on the Zoom.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know I was muted. I'm sorry. How long have I been muted, guys? I'm so sorry.
Just a couple minutes, just a couple minutes. Like 1 minute, 2 minutes.
Okay. I'm sorry. I've been off for a minute. What I'm showing right now is a tool called paperreader.com. Paperreader.com is a very interesting tool, okay, because it not only checks your spelling and grammar and all stuff, it checks the quality of your writing. Thank you in the chat for mentioning that I was muted. Yeah, I guess I lost the audio at some point. Maybe I muted by accident. So I went to paperreader.com. You click the get started button. It'll open up the little text box. Let's see if I got enough of the essay in here. Sure. I got some parts of the essay in here. So this is definitely not a full essay, but let's see what it tells us, okay? So I'm gonna say this is a college undergraduate level paper. You guys are all undergraduates until you get your bachelor's degree. Consider it undergraduate. After you get your bachelor's degree, you're a graduate student. And this is an essay. And I don't need to check for plagiarism because I know it's horribly plagiarized, terribly, tremendously plagiarized. I'm only using it as an example. And I'm gonna do get report. The advanced check would cost money, okay? So get report. It'll take a minute. I'm glad they put that little Pac-Man icon now. It's been there a couple years. And you'll see the essay or whatever you submitted, and you'll see the report on it in a moment. All right, so it's not a great essay. Now, first thing I want to show you just to grab your attention real quick, the grade section, because you don't have too many tools that offer you a grade, all right? So this should have a low grade, got a 69. Right? Not a very good grade for an essay, okay? Now, of course, this is not a perfect system. It's grading what it thinks it might get based on a topic analysis and what it thinks you should be writing at that level. It's not that good of that reliable of a system, but here's where it can help, all right? If I make changes, if I expand it and add to it, I should expect that grade to go up, right? So that's where you could use it. Now, what are the changes that you can make? That's over here in the earlier parts. You got spelling, grammar, word choice, style, vocabulary, and before the grade. And then, if your teacher wants you to submit it, you could submit it, But for example, for spelling, it tells me like here's some mistakes in spelling, right? Maybe it needs to capitalize them. I don't know. You'd have to check them in the actual essay. Grammar suggestions, okay? Interesting. They would recommend changing some of these words. The contaminants, yeah, the contaminant. Interesting. Now, this is one of the tools that I find useful. The use of bad phrases, okay? This is the quality of the language, the word choice, right? Are you using good, solid college level words or are you using very basic words? What I love about it is it shows you the basic words. If you score low, it tells you these are the words that you're using too much in the paper. The worst 10 paper. Words like thing and things. By the way, I agree. Those are two of the worst words you could ever use in writing because everything is a thing. All right? So if you say there are many things people need to consider about water management. How about there are many considerations to take with water management? What is that thing? A consideration. There are many things you should know. How about there are many key points you should know, right? So I always tell you, whenever you see the word thing, you could always find a better word than thing, right? And you could always find a better word than do. I'm surprised they didn't mention the word do in here. I guess they don't have do. But yeah, words like most, many, make, some, find different words, right? And if you want to know more about it, they usually have a link, right? That gives you like some more information about it. Transition phrases. This paper has horrible use of transitions. They would benefit from a few transitions like first, next, most importantly. Those help your readers capture the main ideas. It explains it here. It says here the following transition words and otherwise, not a huge selection of them. And it recommends using these words like consequently, moreover, nevertheless. Small changes like that make the writing better. I always tell students, good writing doesn't happen immediately. Good writing happens from taking it and fixing it and seeing how you can make it better, how you can make it better, how you can make it better. After about 20,000 times of doing that, it gets decent. Okay. But I always say, it's kind of like a joke, but it's serious. There are no good writers, only good editors, right? Every good writer is at their core just very good at editing. And sometimes writers get too stuck. Sometimes writers get writer's block. You know what's happening with writer's block? They're editing themselves too much in their head, okay? So whenever you got that writer's block, just put it out. Dump your ideas, what I call a brain dump. Sometimes I sit on my computer when I was working on my dissertation, I'll just write about the topic, just write what I know. And then later on, eliminate whatever was garbage, You probably had the same experience with dissertation. I know a lot of my colleagues had that brain dump. You just got to get it on paper and think about it later. You know what I mean? Get it off of your mind so you could think about other things. And then, yeah, this is interesting information that your teachers can't necessarily see. Sentence length. It's actually important because you want to have a mix of short and long sentences. You don't want to have a whole bunch of long sentences. It makes it very difficult for your reader to process the information because they have to remember what you said at the beginning of the sentence by the end of the paragraph. That makes it really difficult. They got to keep a lot. It's what they call a cognitive load, a huge cognitive load. You got to keep too much on your mind. But on the other hand, too many short sentences are good for clarifying a point, making it, boom, very clear in a very short, succinct sentence, the point you're trying to make. But if you have too many short, simple sentences, it becomes choppy and simplistic, okay? So, if you have a lot of short sentences, like it says here, more than 17, it says 9 short sentences, 1 long sentence, right? So it should definitely give more long sentences, right? Take 2 of those short sentences, combine them into 1. Not necessarily as a compound sentence, maybe as a complex sentence, maybe merging them. There's many ways to merge sentences. And if you want some help with sentence variety, it gives you a link here. Where's my mouse? Right here. Helpful resources, effective use of sentence length. You could click on that link and it has a really nice discussion about why you need to switch up the length of your sentences. I learned about this in like my 12th grade year at high school. And I've always kept that in mind. My teacher gave us advice, have 2 or 3 long sentences, 1 or 2 short sentences. 2 or 3 short sentences, 1 or 2 long sentences. Switch back and forth between long and short, long and short. This keeps the reader engaged. It keeps them moving along the page from beginning to end. Those are little tricks that writers use to keep you moving, keep you engaged, okay? So now readability, that's only with the premium version, and I'm too cheap to pay for the premium version. Passive voice, as a linguist, I disagree with this. Passive voice is necessary sometimes, especially for dissertations. So we're gonna move on to a passive voice thing, but if you wanna know what passive voice is about, they do have a link here on active versus passive voice. I do agree that overusing passive voice makes your sentences wordy. So if you don't know what that's about, you might wanna look at it. Sentence beginnings, how you start your sentences. Are they all like subject, verb, predicate, which gets very boring? Or do you sometimes begin with a date, or with a time, or with a prepositional phrase, or with a dependent clause, right? So yeah, these sentences all roughly start the same. Look at how it starts. Our water system represents. Water is used. We use. Water quality is important. So they always start with nouns and then a verb. Noun and a verb, see? 13% of them start with a noun. None of them, 30% of them start with a pronoun. Only 7% start with a preposition, which is what we use for place or time, okay? Adjectives, average, they never start with beautiful days are possible sometimes in the spring. No, they just say days, right? They go right into the noun, not even describing the noun. How about our complicated water system or complex water systems represent blah, 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 blah. Start off with an adjective. So just ways to change your sentences to make them more interesting, right? Paperator, it's got different kinds of suggestions than other tools, all right? Grammarly will fix your grammar and your sentences and your spelling. Thesis generators will help you generate theses and stuff. Paperator looks at your language, how you're using the language, right? And whether your sentences are high quality sentences or not. Oh my God, I might be running out of charge here. Oh, yes, I am. Let me connect before I die, and that would definitely put a dent on my presentation here. Oh, where's the outlet here? I just realized how low my charge is. Oh, let me guess, probably here. Okay, that's part, that was not nice. Really, I caught this. Yeah, I was connected in the other room. And I know this laptop, it's a great little laptop. It's a Miami-Dade laptop quality, but it runs out of juice very quickly. The process is pretty good. All right, and then the grade, we saw that paper got a D earlier because it wasn't even a complete paper, etc. That's Paperator. Now I got a message in the chat. Let's see what it tells you need to be improved. Yes, exactly. Oh, Ellen, thank you. Very good, Ellen. Let's see. Yes, it gives you suggestions for improvement on your paper, what we call global suggestions, right? Okay, that's Paperator. Moving on to the next step. Now, you can also use Chat GPT to check your papers. And this is one I'm giving you for free. It looks long. It is long because this prompt is based on the Gordon Rule rubric. And I've thought about ways to improve it. But these are the main things I look for in my student paper. I check papers against Gordon Rule rubric, which looks at the development of the main idea and support. It looks at organization of your ideas, right? It looks at the language, grammar, usage, sentence structure, that kind of stuff, and it looks at the purpose. So I asked ChatGPT to evaluate the essay for a first-year college and writing course. It's always important to establish the context, okay? When you're using ChatGPT, be careful not to give it any private information, any sensitive information, any copywritten information, but also tell it what level you're in, what level of writing, what level of analysis you want. So since you're in a first-year college writing and composition course, tell it check this paper for a college writing composition course and check for the organization, clarity, grammar, overall writing quality, checks that it states, now I added these extra points myself, checks that it states an effective thesis statement at the end of the introduction. I like my thesis statements to connect to the topic sentences. I'm not married to that idea. I do look to see if it's well organized otherwise, but I know most teachers like to see that the thesis statement and topic sentences connect to each other. And I also ask it to make recommendations to improve the paragraph development if the body paragraphs are too short. If you know you have an issue in your writing, let's say you struggle with development, paragraph development, tell it. Make recommendations for paragraph development if it's too short. And if the essay contains verb tense errors, use the second person, you or your. I mentioned at the start of the semester, I still see it on student papers. And for those of you who are not in my class, never use the word you or your in academic writing. It is only appropriate in two situations. When you're giving instructions, like I'm doing right now, talking to you, giving you instruction, or when you're writing a letter. Hello, how are you? We notice that you haven't been paying your bill, whatever it is, right? If you're not writing a letter and you're not giving instructions, do not use the word you in academic writing, okay? So I asked it to check for that kind of stuff. And don't mention yourself either, by the way, in academic writing, usually, all right? Unless you are the topic. And I asked it to check for unnecessary wordiness, fragments, run-on errors, etc. And it'll go down that list and it'll make recommendations. So this is the free one for you. It's in the handout. I'll make that handout. I'll provide the link again at the end of the presentation for those of you who came in a little bit later. I have a link for this 5-page handout. And this prompt is in there in the proofreading section. So I found this prompt to be useful. You can modify it yourself, right? You could feed any rubric you want. You could take any rubric that your teacher is giving your class and tell your Chat GPT, analyze this piece of work based on the rubric that I'm going to give you. Then it's going to say, okay, give me the work, give me the rubric, and you just give it to it step by step. So let's talk about plagiarism checking. Sorry, I should have zoomed into this slide first. My bad. So there are plagiarism detection tools online, but it'd be more accurate to call them text matching systems, because what they're really doing is looking for any phrases or chunks of text in a paper that match something on the internet or in their databases. In the case of Turnitin has the largest database. Now, you have online plagiarism checkers like Paperator, it has a plagiarism checker, or StudyCrumb's plagiarism checker. These are a little bit more limited. They don't have the kind of database that Turnitin does. Thing is that these guys will check the internet for papers that are on the internet and sources that are on the internet, including open access articles, journals. Turnitin has a huge database of student essays, all the essays that students have turned in over the last, 27 years. They've been around for 27 years, okay? So a database, 27 years worth of papers that they could draw from in addition to the internet. So, Turnitin is a big guy on the block. Now, you shouldn't have to worry about plagiarism, though, if you're citing your sources correctly. Those of you who are my students know I've talked about this, right? The only thing you have to worry about is don't use too much of your quotes, all right? Use the bare minimum part of your quote that you need to, all right? But if you are concerned about plagiarism, you can click on StudyCrumb. This is a free tool, and it will check for plagiarism there. There are other plagiarism checkers online. Grammarly has a plagiarism checker. The Packback writing tool also has a plagiarism checker, which is very good, all right? So you could put your paper in here and have it check for plagiarism if you're concerned about it. Now, what I would be concerned about is, are you overusing your sources, all right? If you are citing your sources correctly, there's a right way to use outside sources and a wrong way to use outside sources, all right? You shouldn't be concerned about plagiarism unless you are not sure about your abilities with MLA or APA citations, in-text citations, right? Using signal phrases with the author and the dates, using quotation marks around any text that you're borrowing. If you want to use a person's exact words, it's okay. You can do it, all right? You just have to put quotation marks around it and use a signal phrase indicating what the author's and the date is and list that source in your references, and you're good to go. You just can't make your whole paper just quote after quote after quote after quote. Your ideas have to be in there, all right? As I mentioned to people, you want to be sure that you're integrating quotes properly. Remember that basic 5-sentence paragraph that you learned when you were little. And those of you who are in my 825 group, you saw it in the outline. In every paragraph, you should have a topic sentence, reason number 1, reason number 2, reason number 3, and a conclusion. We all learned that when we're little. Those ideas should come from you. And then your quotes and your paraphrases should come in between them to support reason number one, or to support reason number two, or to support reason number three. That's one key way to avoid plagiarism, all right? And then the other part of that, make sure that you're giving the author and the date in the signal phrase and listing it in your references, okay? A little bit more current, maybe, and controversial is the AI detection, all right? Because I'm telling you to use these AI tools. Now, what happens if next semester you enroll in a class with the professor and says, I don't want you to use AI, or I don't want your AI report score to go above 20% on Turnitin. Unfortunately, we have Turnitin available to us, and Turnitin gives us a numerical score that will tell us how much percentage of the paper is generated by AI. It can be fooled, it can be duped like any other system, right? Any system could be duped. That doesn't mean that it's a useless system, right? Home alarms, right? Home alarms can be duped, you know, but we still like to have home alarms, right? Yeah, all kinds of systems. People can get around an antivirus, but we still like to have an antivirus to protect our systems, right? We still want them in place, right? So if your teacher doesn't allow AI text, or if you're worried that you might have overused it, or if you're worried about how it looks, you can use a Scribber AI detector, okay? And it'll give you a similar report on how much of your paper is generated, how much is human, how much is AI generated. Some teachers will have policy. You need to check with your teachers at the beginning of each semester. Please pay attention on day one when they're going through their syllabus and their policies. And if they don't mention their AI policy, raise your hand politely and ask, what's your policy with using AI tools? Because Professor Duenas, you can mention my name if you want to. I'll have an interesting conversation with them, I'm sure. You can tell them Professor Duenas encouraged you to use them. All right. You could say Adrian Tulloch backed them up on that one too. No, but yeah, Professor Duenas encourages you to use them, but not all teachers are comfortable with it. Okay. Some teachers don't want you to use it all there. This is new to all of us. It's a new frontier for all of us. Some teachers might just say no computer-based work at all in their classes to avoid the possibility of AI text. You might be writing essays, timed essays in class. All right. So you still need to know essay writing. We also need to know how to write. I mean, a big question, like, do we still need to know how to write since AI can write for us? And the short answer to that is yes. Because what the research has also discovered is that if you give AI, because AI is trained on human input, right? Human text, human written text. If you feed AI written text into an AI system to train it, it starts generating more and more and more errors. It's what they call model dementia. Also model decay. All right. So for you programming geeks out there, there is model dementia, model decay. That's an issue with AI usage. All right. That's one of the challenges of AI. Model decay, model dementia. It's a long way of saying that we're always going to need human writers, because you're always going to need some kind of human produced writing to be able to train AI to do it. Okay. Luckily, we have hundreds of years of human produced writing behind us. My worry is, how does that affect the development of language in the future? As a point of speaking as a linguist, I wonder what the impact of AI and recycling old language is going to have on the formation of new languages, new dialects and such, Another discussion for another day. So getting back into, so you have the Scribber AI detector. You can upload your text in there. It'll tell you how much AI you've used. If you're curious, if you've used AI to write your papers, run it through, okay? You also have WriteFool, another similar tool. A GPT detector. There are many of them. There are many, many, many GPT detectors out there now. Far too many to list. Okay. But they are out there. That's the important thing to be aware of. And the Turnitin AI report, you need to be aware of the fact that your teacher is using, I don't think I have a charge here. I think I'm running out of charge. Let me try plugging that one. It went dim. That's why I was not sure if I'm charging or not. Okay. I don't think it's charging. Yeah. I got enough to get to the end of the presentation. Oh, that would help. That might help. This mic right there. Yeah, my screen got bright, so it's definitely charging. It's plugged in now. Okay, good. All right, so yeah, and do be aware your teachers are using the Turnitin AI report, okay? And I always discourage them from basing their decisions on a single score. All right, that single score doesn't represent too much. How much are you comfortable with, right? How much would you be comfortable with? All right, and then finally, some GPT prompts, okay? AI can check for matching text as well, as you saw there. So what you need to be aware of, all right, if you're using AI, you need to cite it correctly to avoid at least being accused of intentional AI misuse, okay? If you cite the fact that you're using AI tools, and you should, any one of these tools that you use, all right, if you use them, you should create a separate page called tools, or you can list it on references. I've seen two different guidelines for APA. The official one that they have out there, and it's been changed, it's been modified now to a tools page. But there's a link here on how to cite Chat GPT, all right, in APA style. This is from the APA, and they mentioned this here, right? If you're using text that was created by Chat GPT, all right, you mentioned that when prompted, what it was prompted, what you told Chat GPT to what you asked it, and what Chat GPT responded. That could be part of your paragraph. Okay, don't mention yourself, mention Chat GPT and what it said, and then you cite it. OpenAI 2023. Actually, we're in 2024. Okay, and then in your references, you can list OpenAI, Chat GPT, put the current version, the date, and the version, large language models, what it is, and the link. That's the official reference for OpenAI for the Chat GPT. What I've seen more recently, however, and this is probably being an update to APA, is that they are now telling people to put it on a tools page, which makes more sense because reference means that you could refer back to it. You can't really refer back to, AI generated text. So I recommend either list it on your references, or maybe more appropriate, a page that says tools used, list them alphabetically, and list whichever tools you're using, okay? By the company that creates it, the year, and the tool name italicized, and the date that you're using it, what kind of tool it is in brackets. We always specify what type of thing, what type of source, and then the link. That's how you cite it. I also have the MLA guidelines. I'm not terribly familiar with this myself, but this is from the MLA handbook itself. And they do not recommend treating AI tool as an author. So they don't recommend putting it in the references list, interestingly enough, okay? But you do cite it in text, and you cite it as ChatGPT in brackets, okay? Now, where should I list that? Interesting. So here you got an example, paraphrasing text. And here's how to use it. And they put it like this, right? And they just put as a citation in the in-text, describe the symbolism, and they listed it according to the first few words of the prompt. So MLA is always more complicated. In my opinion, MLA is always more complicated than APA. I much prefer APA. But since the prompt began with describe the symbolism of blah, 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 that was a citation in MLA, describe the symbolism. And in the references, the works cited page, they listed it as describe the symbolism. All right. So those are the guidelines for using AI in APA and MLA. The main point here, you can't really see it there with the logo, but respect your readers, respect your readers, respect the intelligence of the readers. Don't try to pull a fast one on them. Don't try to be slick with them, okay? So this brings us to the end of the presentation. I see some of you had to leave already for your class, which is perfect. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them right now. I'm gonna go back to that first slide, however, so you can see the link here. You can scan that QR code and get this handout for those of you who are at home. If you're at home, you can feel free to ask a question in the chat. I'll be looking for your questions right now. Those of you who are in here, any questions for me? Sure.
A couple of questions. One for the class. I'm curious to know which tool they learn to most likely use in your
It's a good question. So those of you who are online, Her question was, which tool do you feel is the most helpful, right? Out of the participants here, what do you guys think is the most helpful tool? Would it be Chat GPT? Would it be? Chat GPT is a game changer, but you gotta understand that Chat GPT represents a sort of technology behind it, right? The GPT 3.5 engine, the large language model, which a lot of these other tools are using. SciSpace is using it. Elicit AI is using it. Yeah.
The litmaps websites.
Litmaps.
Really useful.
Yeah.
It's really hard to find a source and sort of related to.
Sources related to your article. I agree. And when I got that note from my dissertation chair saying, cite some other sources that have used this, like, oh, I know exactly where I'm going to go to find them, Yeah, I find that one very interesting. It's a little bit quirky, a little bit tricky to work with and stuff sometimes, but yeah, you can go down some interesting rabbit holes and discover new papers, like very recent papers that have used the research and see that line of research. I really love that. Litmaps is good. I personally thought Elicit AI, I've used it before, but the upgrades they've made, I think have made it really good. I like it better than SciSpace now myself. You know what I mean? So what do you guys think? Carlos, what did you think? What was the best tool? Oh, you said Chat.
Space because when you're talking about like you get a writer's block and then you're just like brain dump all the ideas.
Right.
Like just like something things that just sound run off and you didn't know you were coming. But it was already kind of fresh.
It's structured for you. Yeah. I like that about SciSpace and Elicit AI too. They give you like that little summary at the beginning, so you can see how these ideas tie together quickly. How about you guys online? I got 11 participants online. What tool did you find most interesting, or which one do you think is most helpful? You're gonna have to put it in the chat. I don't know. I won't be able to hear you myself here. I'm not connected to the audio, unfortunately. But if you could type it in the chat. Oh, I got one taker. Writing Lab, yes, through Packback. It's a great tool. If you're not, are you using? Well, I guess I don't know if you're using it or not. If you are comfortable answering that. If you're using Packback in your class, let me know, Maven. But Packback is a very interesting tool, very powerful tool. Yeah. Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome, Professor Noonan. I also like Paperator as well. I like Paperator for the sentence level feedback that it gives me. I definitely, and I like the Packback Writing Lab because it coaches you. It lets you create the writing yourself, but it brings out the best in you. Very, very useful tools. I think you will. Yeah, a lot of teachers are beginning to use Packback. We recently, I think only about a year or so, year and a half ago, got a site license from Miami-Dade. So it's free for all teachers to use, but they do have to go through some training with Packback because we have to set it up every semester for our classes. I think Packback is one of the more exciting new tools that we have out there as instructors. It's definitely the most exciting thing since maybe Turnitin for me. APA has a new space to cite AI tools. Yeah, the AI advice has been there since last year, but that's changing, as I see it. Yeah, it's not how much AI use, but how they're using it. I think that's the ultimate determiner for all your instructors. Find out how comfortable they are with you using AI, what they're comfortable with you doing with AI. Open up that conversation on day 1 or day 2 if you haven't had that conversation. If you don't have that conversation with your professors, make sure you do have that conversation, because as they become more and more ubiquitous in our society, it reminds me of I could call it calculus, but like, for example, cell phones. Once upon a time, we used to tell our students, don't bring your cell phones to class or turn off your cell phone. Probably in elementary school, middle school, I'm not trying to pick on you, Ron. It made me think about it. Once upon a time, or even in some class, they have the little things, the pockets where you put your cell phones, but you could also use your cell phone in class. You could use it as a response device. When we're playing Kahoots in class, or we play a Kahoot, you're answering on your cell phone, it brings you in, it kind of engages you. So we could avoid it, we could work around it, and we could do things the same way we always have, or we could incorporate it. And if we use it, I'd hate the word, but if we use it intelligently, what kind of things can we do with it, right? So yeah, can't get away from it. So knowing how to use it properly is definitely important. I definitely agree. I'm gonna thumbs up that comment because I love that. Yes. All right, folks. Well, I hope you found this useful. Once again, if you scan this QR code, here, right next to my chat box, the code that says scan me. You'll get this handout that I created. It's kind of like a AI cookbook for students. It's definitely student facing. This is not for instructors. Okay, sorry, instructors, but you can share it with your students. But this is showing students how they could use Chat GPT and other AI tools at different steps of the writing process. And it's got prompts in there, other prompts that I didn't even mention in class, okay? So I hope you guys find this helpful. I hope you use them. I hope it brings out the best writing in you, in all of us, honestly. And thank you for coming, guys. I really appreciate it. All right. That'll be the end of our presentation. Bye-bye. You're welcome. All right. Stick around another moment or two because I'm used to getting questions at the last minute. It always happens. I always ask in class, any questions? Dead silence. You guys know it's true.
No, that's just.
Okay, yeah, here's my email address, right? Thank you for that. In case you guys have any questions, this is my area of research, so I'll be very happy to help you, any questions you might have. And if I don't know, I'll tell you I don't know. All right. Thank you guys for coming. I really appreciate it. All right, and we'll share the recording later on. Thank you very much.